This conference will now be recorded.
So in order to establish a quorum, I see we have Director Louise, we have Director Perkins, we have Director Margot, and myself. So we have established.
And Regina.
And of course, Regina, Director.
Director.
Excellent. Great. It is now 7:08 p.m. on July 21st, 2020. Welcome to our Del Vista Road Maintenance Board meeting. As usual, I normally like to do establish what the expectation is for this meeting so that we can have a map that flows well and expectations will be met according to what is expected. As a reminder that we have an agenda that's already established. The reason why we have an agenda established is according to the stipulation of Florida Statute 718, we do need to notice the meeting to our members before we have a discussion on the agenda. Now, if it's not on the agenda, that's a discussion that it would actually be a disadvantage for an homeowner who wishes to have an input or if they wish to participate in the decision process that we are taking on their behalf. So just wanted to remind you as a reason why, if the questions that are asked, if the questions are not relevant or germane to road maintenance. However, if the questions that are asked are related to road maintenance, now we do know that road maintenance and power has many overlapping responsibilities, then respond to someone needs to place their phones and mute their phone and mute their phones. Okay. Now, if the question that is asked is relevant, has some relevance to road maintenance, then that's a question that is within the purview of the agenda that we will be covering. So hopefully that will cover the expectation of what can be expected from this meeting before we get started. So proof of minutes, proof of notification for the meeting.
It was
Louis,
established, posted.
Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you so much. The next thing that we have on the agenda is for the approval of all outstanding minutes from the previous board meeting. So there are two meetings that we had outstanding that needed to be approved by the board. One was a meeting that was done on April 27, 2020. And then the following minutes are from the meeting that we had held on May 21st, 2020. Now, before I place a motion on the floor for us to approve those minutes, I would like to have open it on the floor in the event that any member here would like us to actually read the contents of those minutes before we approve the minutes.
I would like to have the minutes read.
You'd like to have the minutes read? Thank you. Okay.
Who is reading the minutes?
Yeah. Okay, now for the minutes, this is the minutes. These are the contents from the minutes from April 27, 2020. Del Vista Road Maintenance Board meeting. The meeting was called to order by Paul Warren at 7:03 p.m. Meeting format was remote GoToMeeting. However, due to the management's office Wi-Fi disconnection, the meeting format was adjusted to a conference call mode only. A quorum was established. In attendance was Carl Berkins, Regina Goldfine, Mariana Margot, and Luis Roderick. Paul opened the meeting by thanking the management staff, inclusive of manager, Terry, and assistants, Vanessa and Alex. Special emphasis and recognition was given to the frontline staff, that is, security staff, valet, and the cleaning maintenance team. They were recognized for their commitment to providing excellent service during these difficult times. A discussion was opened as to the selection of the annual plans, and opinions were solicited. Due to the disconnected Wi-Fi, the meeting facilitation via GoToMeeting was handicapped from displaying visual options or alternatives available. Paul then moved on to the second agenda. This was referenced to the golf balls from the Turnberry Golf Course skirting the fence and trees surrounding the Del Vista property. My apologies. It's a bit tricky navigating here on my device as I read here. Several people expressed concerns for dented cars and the possible danger of a resident being injured. One townhouse participant was concerned that the addition of protective bushes or fencing would restrict their views. Paul added that any recommendation would be subject to adoption by the appropriate townhouse board. Another resident was pleased that we were having a discourse about this issue and felt that the golf course / hotel should be financially liable for any damages. Paul announced there would be an electronic bulletin board for participants to express opinions available after the meeting. Paul thanked everyone for their attendance and participation. The meeting concluded at 7:33 p.m. and signed by Secretary Luis Roderick. Any questions? Okay. All right. The minutes for the meeting of April 27, 2020 is on the floor for the approval of the minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to move for the approval of the minutes? Any board member?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Luis. Will anyone like to second that motion?
Yes, I will, Paul. Regina.
Thank you so much. Okay. So the motion for the approval of the minutes from April 27, 2020 has been approved. The next minutes that we have on our agenda for approval, this is for the minutes from May 21st, 2020. Okay. Before the approval of this minutes, before we move for the approval of this minutes, again, I would like to open the floor and offer the opportunity to any participant as to whether or not he or she would like us to read the contents of this minutes before we approve them or consider them for approval.
Yeah, I would like Paul the minute to be read, please, because I don't receive a copy to read over first. Thank you.
Okay, Director Margot, I will read the copy that I have here. Okay. This is the minutes from May 21st, 2020. The meeting was called to order by Paul Warren at 1:04 p.m. It was a go-to-meeting virtually facilitated by to the attendees. A quorum was established and proof of posting demonstrated. Paul Warren explained the relationship between the towers and the Townhouse Association and explained how the budget was designed. Carl Berkings and Regina Goldfein opened a discussion about the increase in payroll and management funding on the proposed budget. Mariano Margot explained that the funding was contingent and would not be utilized at this time. A reduction in the landscaping and trees trimming costs was questioned, and Paul Warren explained a newly negotiated contract with the landscaping firm reduced the costs and included the tree trimming. Louise Roderick made a motion to approve the 2020-2021 budget as presented. The motion was seconded by Regina Goldfein. All voted in favor and the proposed 2020-2021 budget was approved. Louise Roderick made a motion to adjourn the meeting. The motion was seconded by Regina Goldfein. Paul Warren adjourned the meeting at 1:45 p.m. Signed by Secretary Louise Roderick.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any questions? Okay. All right. So the minutes, I am opening the floor with a motion for us to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2020.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from May 21st, 2020 as presented.
Okay. Thank you, Director Roderick. Would anyone like to second Director Roderick? Any directors?
I second. I second.
Thank you so much, Director Margot. Okay. So the minutes for May 21st, 2020, specifically referred to as the budget meeting, has been approved. Okay. Moving on in our agenda, you have a copy of the agenda. You can follow and see where we are. The next thing that we have on the agenda is for the compensation posting job description and hiring of candidates as administrative assistant to DRM, and the subsequent posting below to discuss the posting, the job description, potential compensation of a licensed manager to manage the road maintenance portfolio, subject to Florida Statute 718, licensing requirements and applicable bids and contract stipulation. Now, I've read these two agenda items together, and the reason why I read these two agenda items together is I'm about to open the floor for us to have a discussion, and prior to us having discussion, I'd like to take the opportunity to actually acknowledge that there were a few directors that actually reached out to me to have a conversation about the posting of this position. And I want people to understand, want my neighbors and share owners to understand that it was not because I wish not to have a conversation with my fellow directors. However, because part of our pledge is for us to have an open book, transparency, to give our members the opportunity to input in whatever decision-making process that we have here, I have not been engaging in those conversations. So I just want to make it for the record, to make it clear that it was not because of any bad intent that I wish not to speak with that person, but anytime we have a discussion that has to do with Del Vista's affair, I think it's a great opportunity for us to have this discussion together, whether we're having an open meeting in persons or we're via one of these electronic options so that we can have a robust process and we can have the input for owners. They can also hold us accountable for the decisions that we also make. I'm going to mute this person. Okay. Yeah. They can also hold us accountable for the decisions that we also make. So it's only because of that purpose, that I've actually not been engaging in terms of having those conversations with those persons. Now, if a director or any member reaches out to me to have a conversation with me personally, that has nothing to do with Del Vista, of course, that conversation or that email communication, that is actually a private conversation. But anything that has to do with Del Vista's affair, as a part of our practice of open books, I just want to make sure everyone, I'm saying this to everyone on the record so that there won't be a participant that believes that there is a mal or bad intent when I wish not to be open in my communication with that person. Now, before I open the floor in terms of the discussion for agenda 2 and 3, I just want to give a preface as to how we got to agenda 2 and 3. Now, on June 23rd, I was advised by Paul Berkins, that Paul Berkins is also a director of this board, that the Torres board hired a property manager, and that property manager had the exclusive responsibility only for towers. Now, this was a sidebar conversation that we had. Of course, I wasn't pleased by that process, because that process did not include the Del Vista Road Maintenance Board in terms of having an input after the hiring process, whichever works best for the Towers Board. But to make matters worse, when he told me that the decision was made was to hire this person exclusively for the Towers Board, it created a problem in terms of the fact that if that person will be the manager exclusively for towers, who will manage the portfolio for the Del Vista Road maintenance portfolio? A suggestion was made that I hire Vanessa. Now, again, I want to make it clear on the record, because otherwise, but Vanessa may have gotten the feedback from anyone that I'm rejecting her or not choosing to hire her. No, I wasn't forthcoming. I wasn't, shall I say, welcome in accepting that suggestion to hire her to be the manager for the road maintenance portfolio. And the reason why is, one, I wanted to make sure that we had an open posting process. If we have an open posting process, of course, she would be welcome to apply for the position, and I would be more than happy to entertain her, myself, and many other residents here at Del Vista. That was one of the reasons. And then reason number 2 was the fact that she needed to have her license. And as of the date of this meeting, Vanessa is not a licensed property manager. So that also created another problem. And then problem number 3 was the fact that we have had some issues in terms of locating certain records within the road maintenance purview portfolio. Now, before I open the floor for the discussions, and particularly towards the directors of towers, as to see what their proposals are in terms of solving this problem, is what we have right now is a situation where the management office decides what area of road maintenance they are responsible for. For example, they choose to be responsible for the security guards at the gate. Now, all of that comes under road maintenance. If something happens, something that presents a liability, it falls within the purview of road maintenance. So we have a problem by not having one uniform property manager. For example, yesterday someone brought to my attention there was a problem with weeds at the front. Again, we need to have, well, if we had one property manager with communicating across the board. So there's so many problems in addition to our problems of budgeting and a problem of seamless communication across the board. We have a problem in terms of the person that we hire has to be licensed because due to the fact that there are some documents that we don't have on file, documents that we are in the process of reconstructing to the best of our abilities. My question to the board would be, when a resident makes a request to inspect the association record, let's say, for example, for the invoices that we don't have for the prior landscaping contract or for those contracts, what do we do, right? So we haven't addressed these problems, and we don't have a licensed manager, and we have hired someone that has an exclusive responsibility for towers. So the floor is open.
Yeah. Paul, may I have the floor?
Hello.
Please?
Hey.
This is Alberto.
Go ahead, please.
Well, Paul, first of
This is
all, on
Carl
behalf
Berkins.
of neighbors and friends, I'm sorry.
Judge William, go ahead. 1 second. 1 second, Paul.
Paul,
Judge
do I have
William, go
the
ahead.
floor, please? Paul, this is Alberto Millian. On behalf of your friends and neighbors, I want to extend our condolences on the death of your mom.
Thank you so much, Judge. Thank you so much.
The second point I want to make is this. I don't understand, and I think most of us don't understand, that for 20 years I've lived there, and the Del Vista manager and the support staff has been inextricably intertwined with the management of the Del Vista road management. Furthermore, putting a burden on our neighbors that has never existed before seems to me patently unfair. And I'll go on to say the following: we have common interests. I don't see why we need to impose on our neighbors an unnecessary burden of hiring a manager, an assistant. And I simply do not understand, and I think a lot of us don't understand, looking at equity, fairness in general, why we need to impose on them a financial burden when, since traditionally, we have come together to work out our problems. The Del Vista Road Management neighbors have been kind enough to lend us their pool when ours was unavailable, the main pool. They have been kind enough to lend us their facilities when ours were not available. They've done a phenomenal job in upkeep of their landscape. And ultimately, what has changed that would warrant this cataclysmic change in the way we work together? I fear that, as in the long run, this will create friction instead of harmony between two pieces of property that are intertwined, and it's not justified. I think it's wrong, but more fundamentally, I think it's unfair to them. And I welcome any of the DRM members giving an explanation for why we are making this radical departure from a tradition that I've observed for over 20 years.
Thank you, Judge Millian. Who will be the next person? Your
Yes.
comments are noted,
Yes.
Judge Millian. Paul Berkins? Yes.
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
Hello. Can I speak? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, please. Yes, Paul.
Okay. Here's the deal. There has never been a codified list of responsibilities were for the manager, the administrative staff, or the Eddie and his guys of what their responsibilities were for road maintenance. It was a verbal agreement between past presidents and past managers.
You
So
respond.
now we have a employee handbook that specifically says that if an employee has responsibilities that okay, trying to a different board or anything, it's because they do not have a clear set of guidelines of what their responsibilities are. And that was the only purpose for bringing this up, was because if they're going to be and all staff on board with doing this, is that they want it in writing so you can put it in their personnel jacket, manager. And looking back at the contracts for the last 3 managers here since we became a private association, there was no mention of DRM or road maintenance, even though they were receiving compensation. So what they wanted to do, and talking to our staff, because they get tasked between um, Tower and Del Vista and road maintenance, what are our responsibilities? And can you put it in writing and tell us exactly what you want us to do, or exactly what you expect us to do? Period.
Mr. Chairman, let me respond if you give me the right of rebuttal. This is
Please
very
go ahead.
simply settled. This is very simply settled. We do a memorandum of understanding, which is the typical agreement that is done. We can formalize it, but right now we have a historical precedent for the way things have been done. A memorandum of understanding, as the commander understands very well, is simply an interagency agreement of what duties, responsibilities, and obligations are, and therefore we will formalize it. But I think to depart from 20 years of my experience in the organization is a counterproductive and can only lead to rivalries and frictions and competition. Let's do a memo of understanding. That's very simply settled between our two organizations. After all, as Dan Epstein pointed out in a recent email, we are responsible for 80% of the budget, and ultimately, that 80% obligation can only benefit us to have the cooperation of an entity that enhances the value of the Vista properties, enhances the aesthetic value of our properties, enhances the luxury of our property. So let's do a memo of understanding. And if it's not out of order, or I will do it at the appropriate moment, I'll make a motion that we sign a memorandum of understanding with Del Vista Road Management and solidifying and consecrating to a written agreement our relationship with that organization, and will actually benefit us in the long run.
Point well taken, Judge William. Thank you so much. Director Margot.
You know what? Absolutely, absolutely.
Director Margot's on the floor.
You know what? I absolutely agree with you.
Director Margot is on the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. What I wanted to say is that's exactly the proposal we wanted to discuss. And I think from ever and ever, as far as I know, the office of Del Vista served both associations, and we don't think that this needs to be different from now on. What we need or what we think it's necessary, it's a memo of understanding, contract, or whatever is needed for the expectations for each part to be clear, and that's it. I don't think, and when the agenda was set, I personally WhatsApp Paul to talk about, hey, this is not the right agenda, because we are not discussing to hire anybody. We have one office. We cannot have two offices. The line item for the management fees, which is for paying for this work, is $6,000 a year. With that, we cannot afford even one person a month. So this is obviously the right way to go, and we don't need to be in this informal option that we used to have, where different people get money from the DRM. This needs to be with towers, and whatever adjustment in the salary needs to be made, towers need to make it from the 6,000 that it needs to cash from the DRM, and that's it. It's really simple. It's exactly what it's the solution for a problem that we don't have it really, or we were not having it.
Okay, Mariano, thank you so much for having your input.
I have a question. If somebody...
pretty clear that the problem was actually created when we hired a new manager in June, and the communication that I received was basically because the prior manager's contract did not have an addendum to or any agreement with road maintenance. So the new contract also continued with us as a precedent, which to me didn't make sense because we are the employer. So
it's incorrect.
My thought process and my thought process here is, why didn't we do this before when we were hiring the manager? Because now we're in a situation where we already have a manager that's hired, and now we're in a weakened situation in terms of how we go and negotiate an addendum to that employee's contract.
But that's not an issue from towers.
If we had done this before, it creates a uniform flow so that whatever inefficiencies that was done before, there was no need for us to continue that inefficient flow without having it in writing. Because now we're actually saying the same thing, but we did it in a way that's actually
yes, we are doing the same. We are saying the same thing. It's formally better. It's formally better to have a contract with towers.
We hire the persons afterward, and then after we hire the person, now we have to go back and then an attempt to offer that person an addendum, which they already have a contract that stipulates what their job descriptions are, because the communications that actually was shared with me and what was the suggestions were basically to hire someone separate, hire Vanessa or at some point then follow the proper posting of us finding our proper manager. So now that we're actually going back on the same page, but which is where we needed to be. But
we were not in a different page, never.
I'm sorry?
We were not in a different page, never. The issue is we didn't have the chance to talk.
We were, Director Margot, you communicated to me on WhatsApp suggesting that I hire Vanessa to manage the portfolio, correct or not?
No, it's incorrect. It's a communication. No, Paul.
You did not recommend to me that I hire Vanessa to be the property manager?
No.
To manage road maintenance?
We tried to open a conversation that didn't happen because you closed it.
Okay. Because I have here in writing where basically you said to me, Paul, you don't want Vanessa? That's what I have. That's what I have in writing.
Paul, this is not the point of the meeting. This
Well,
meeting is
because I'm having communications from you as recommending that I have a board meeting to consider hiring Vanessa for the position, and I basically give a response that I'd rather that we have this discussion in an open forum, that we have a bids and contract processing that's open for posting. There's a licensing requirement, and that's the conversation that we have here.
So you are not okay with the office of the Vista Towers to handle both business?
Mariano, perhaps I'm not as gifted with the English language as you are, sir. But at no time did I say that.
Again, sarcasm is not going to get us forward in any way. I am
well,
telling.
At no time did I say that. At no time did I say that. In fact,
I am asking. I'm not saying you said it. I am asking. I'm asking.
In fact,
are you okay with having a memo of understanding with responsibilities and fees from one association to the other to go forward in a better and more formalized way than we did before, where we didn't have that? We have contact with individuals. Now it's the office which needs to work for both.
Mariano,
are you okay with that, or are you not? Because this is going to take forever if not. I am not gifted with English language. I'm direct because I don't have many tools in the language.
Mariano,
you're doing fine.
Okay.
No, but just to cut to the chase, because it looks like we are all in agreement, and the only thing we are doing is discussing.
Mariano,
you think you thought I told you and never told you, but I tell you. I don't think that's productive at all. I think that we have a great understanding of what things need to look like in order to go forward. And I'm finishing. I leave you the floor.
May I say something?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm hearing you guys go back and forth, and I think all of this could have been avoided if the conversation, this very conversation that you guys are having right this minute, happened before this decision was made. I'm just not really understanding where the lack of communication occurred. I'm not understanding why there's, if you have something in writing from Mariano and you're asking him in person, he's saying no, but it's in writing. So I think you guys need to get beyond this back and forth and just address things proactively. And yeah.
Point well.
Who's speaking now? Who just spoke?
Thank you.
Joanne Broussard.
Thank you.
Excuse me? Oh, Joanna. Okay. How are you, dear? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. The point of the matter is, before there was no need for us to actually have gotten here if we had actually done this before. But now that we have done it afterwards, now we are actually streamlining in a direction that's actually correct, in the same direction. Okay. So now, are there any other comments from any other residents here? But when we have these conversations in our open forum, right? But anytime,
yes. I want to ask a question. How many board members sitting in both associations, in the La Vista Tower and the MDR? How many board members sitting in both associations?
There's 6 in the towers and 4 in the road maintenance.
Okay, four of them in the. How many people in the existing board right now sitting in both associations?
6.
Okay, very good question, Daniel.
Let's answer my question.
Station with the townhouse president, and it seems that it has a lot to do with budgeting, that because towers actually finance about 87.7% of the budget for road maintenance, So Townhouse really actually has no, they don't have a director on. However, they are entitled to field a candidate. They had felt that field a candidate to be on the board, but they are entitled to field candidates for the board just as towers are. At this moment, it's predominantly towers. However, not because we are predominantly towers, we have to be cognizant of the needs of our townhouse residents, because tomorrow it may be townhouse that's actually predominant. And regardless of the fact that we are almost 90% of the budget, they will control the gate. And if we decide that we want to control the gate only to our benefit, then it can be to our disadvantage. So we want to make sure that we do this in a way that's proper. But that's a very good question. If that answers your question.
But Paul, you know, as a chairman, the question is very succinct. How many members on the DRM are also members of the board of directors of Del Vista, our association? One,
four.
2, 3, 4?
All.
The answer is 4.
All of them? I'm sorry, you're
all-
breaking up.
Yeah,
all
the
the
answer is
members
4.
on the board are currently towers. Paul,
Okay, but I know you're not on the Del Vista board. You're on the DRM board.
oh, I'm sorry. I
answer-
misunderstood. Yes, I
the answer is
misunderstood
4.
your question. I
The answer
misunderstood
is 4 directors.
I misunderstood your question, Judge. The members on the board, they're actually all except myself.
Look at this face.
So basically, we have all of the board members except you are also sitting on the Del Vista board, our association.
Yes.
Correct.
And you know what? Listen, I'm
Okay.
again.
You know
I
what?
go back to the original
Hold on,
question.
hold on.
Forgive me for being redundant. Why do we need 2 managers or 2
We don't.
administrative assistants?
We don't.
We don't. We don't.
We don't. We never have.
Okay.
We were always
Can I
with
ask this?
the proposal that you make.
There's 2 people on
Okay,
the
Judge.
first
Let me. Carl Perkins called.
last
You're
year,
breaking up.
and that was me and Louise.
Forgive me, everybody, but one at a time, please. And I think what
There was
the
only
chairman
2.
said is true. Identify yourselves when you speak.
Carl Perkins
Because-
is on the floor.
Carl Perkins. Last year, there were only 3 members of DRM. That was myself, Louise, Leibowitz. Okay. This year in January, we formed a full board, and the only people that are on this, because it's every year you elect a different board, is in Louise.
Carl, your connection is breaking up. I'm not sure why.
Ask a question.
You froze.
Al, may I, Paul, may I say
Okay,
something?
Louise, go ahead, Louise. We can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Okay, Al, all right. One of the problems over the many years that you and I have been here, we have always had the same management team. We never can get anybody who volunteers to work on the DRM because it's basically handled by the towers. We can't even get a townhouse person who wants to be on it. Last year, it was just 3 of us. This whole thing came up. And I'm going to be very honest and let everybody know exactly why. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to. The people in our administrative office, for the first time in all of these years, resigned. They will not work with DRM was the problem because they never had so much work to do besides doing the few checks a month, the yearly budget, and it was very simple. It has become very controversial and a time-consuming thing for them. So, in order to make peace, Carl went in and negotiated with them and spoke with them very nicely and convinced them. Just as you said, this has always been a joint group, and it has not. And so he worked it out with them, and they were willing to come back and to work with the understanding that there would be a list of what their duties were, and it would not go off the wall again with requests, etc., that they weren't capable of handling on this little association. And that's happened.
Right.
So Carl did work out a very nice arrangement. And I think that that is what Mariano is referring to. They would like limited on paper.
Okay,
And
Director Louis.
Well, I'm sorry, but did I just understand that the employee just told the employer what they want to do and what they can handle, and that's the end of it?
Yes.
Is that what I heard in plain English?
Yes.
no,
Yes.
that is not. What they described was the unhappiness in being overrun with work that was taking them far past what they were accomplished.
So, Paul, did I just hear
unhappiness.
that the employee is unhappy with their workload? Is that what I just heard in plain English?
I will add for the record that what's considered unhappiness is the
Explain.
maintenance portfolio. Prior to the new boards taking charge of that portfolio, we have discovered several discrepancies with documents that are not being unfiled, which include contracts that are not signed, contracts that are missing, invoices that are missing, bids and contract processes. So if there is an employee who wishes to have a job description that doesn't consider these things compliant according to the statute 718, my suggestion would be to that person that they consider some other form of community of employment, because I will tell you, and I will suggest to this forum that I will not agree to hire any employee or anyone that will decide whether or not they wish to comply with the information or whether or not they will be forthcoming with information that's required of them. Because all the documentations,
I do not
provided have been provided from me and have been shared with all members of this association, which shows the consuming time. If an employee is forthcoming with a response, there is no need for an inquiry to conduct for the entire day. For the record, as of today, July 21st, I still have not received documents that I've been attempting to review, contracts, so I can see when the contracts will be expired so that we can plan properly or to see if the contracts are compliant. How can this be considered to be unreasonable? Really?
Because, all right,
Please,
Paul, Paul, I don't want to argue with you, and I won't. I'm just telling you that some of the allegations that you have charged are not true. Some of the records.
Please be specific, Director Roger. What allegations are not true?
Paul, let me talk, please. Paul, let me talk, please.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Do we have all records what 718 requires? We have all records 1718 requires.
Okay, so specifically what you're saying is we are required.
Listen, you don't have to repeat, Paul. You don't have to repeat what I'm saying. I'm asking simple questions. We have all the records. That's all I'm asking.
Paul wanted to have.
Do we have all the records?
No, we do. No, we do not.
Okay. Why?
Why? You have different answers?
Why not? Why not? Why not? You guys don't understand. We're responsible for the townhouses too. If they ask for record, we be in the problem, and legality going to be sky high.
And that's my proposal. Simply, the question I'm asking to anyone who wishes to be. This intent is not to offend. this is not a personal attack on anyone. But if a member of this association makes a request for documents, whether it's a copy of the landscaping contract or whether it's a copy of the security contract, right? If we don't provide those documents within the stipulated statutory times of 10 business days or a substantive response, or we don't have the contracts on file, who is responsible? Who is financially liable for those documents?
I would like to make a motion for the DRM to seek an understanding in writing with the towers, with a detail of responsibilities and fees to be paid from DRM to towers for the management to continue.
Right.
Nobody answer my question. Excuse me. Nobody answer my question. Why we don't have records? Why we don't have records?
Why doesn't Paul have all the records for the road maintenance since he's the president? Plain and simple. Why does he not have all the contracts available to him since he is the president of the road maintenance? Does anybody want to give me a pure answer? Louise, I know you can hear me. Carl, Mariano,
I can hear
are
you.
guys
My
all the contracts?
understanding is that they are available and that Hayes was given them. The problem is we were without a manager for a month, and it is very difficult for the administrative assistant to come up with 7 years of canceled checks.
Excuse me, Louise, the last 2 years, where is the contract for the last year where we did have a manager? Where are they?
Louise, it's a
They
specific.
are there.
No one
They are
requested
there?
money, Louise.
We have had unbelievable
Louise?
legal fees that you will be horrified when you
Director
see that
Louise?
this has gone
What?
directly from the president to the lawyers.
Director
We have
Louise?
already on the budget, Mariano, we have used our entire year's legal fees.
Why? Why we use the entire legal fee? Why? Because
of the request to the lawyers.
Why? Because we don't have records?
No, because
We
you
don't
have
need
to
lawyers for records. What it means reconstruct the record?
And that's what I was
Reconstruct the record. What it means?
Yeah, where are they?
If the records are provided, there's no need to get the legal involved. It's because records are not being provided. This is why legal is being involved.
Excuse me, when the president of the board of the Mount writes directly to the lawyers, they are obligated to answer.
And my understanding is because he's not getting a response. He's not getting the documents that are being requested. So what do you want him to do if he's not getting the information that's being requested?
Maybe they got
You're only getting one side of the story, and
But
now
we're asking you right now, Louise. You're not saying anything.
Exactly. No one.
I'm telling you that I am telling you that what has been requested, a lot of it has been very unreasonable. The last we did not have.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Who are you to say
You're
unreasonable?
making a
You guys
judgment.
are fraud.
Carl, take over.
Go ahead, pass the buck over to Carl. The guy is the president of road maintenance. If he asks for a contract, he should be able to see it.
Who's speaking? Who's speaking?
For the record, Director Louise, I am chairing this meeting. You do not have the prerogative to pass the chairmanship of this meeting to Director Carl Berkings.
I agree.
No, I was just.
Thank you.
I agree.
Can we make a motion?
Okay.
I agree. Maybe they got shredded, Paul. And Luis is talking all over everybody.
Before the records, the documents that were requested were pretty simple for the records. I requested copies of the landscape contract for the most recent landscaping contract vendor that we have. I requested the current contract and the most recent contract. The most recent contract that was presented to me was unsigned and was not promulgated by the board. The previous contract was neither on file. So we actually had to have the current contract reconstructed with the supervision of legal. I requested copies of the invoices to which we are making payment. Neither could they provide copies of those invoices to me. I requested copy of the prior vendor, which was the prior landscaping company that we used. To date, we have no record of that landscaping contract. Neither do we have copies of the financials for that period. So, notwithstanding the fact that I, as president, has made requests for those documents so I can do my due diligence, we are in a situation that if any member of this association makes a request for those documents, we don't have copies of those documents. Now, I have had to engage legal to actually supervise the reconstructing process of the documents that we have to the best of our ability. It is not within the purview of this board, within the statute, to reconstruct legal documents without attorney's advice. That's as a fraudulent attempt. It's fraudulent for us to, on our own, to decide what dates to do on when to reconstruct and re-sign the contract, notwithstanding contracts may be outstanding to different parties, which we do not have. I have made it clear that as long as I am the president of this board, every contract that we have signed, those contracts need to be vetted by legal. The contract must be vetted by legal. And if the contract is not vetted by legal, and if there are documents that are missing, we are not going to reconstruct documents on our own. That in itself will be fraud. So those were the documents that were requested direct to Luis. At no time did I requested copies of 7 years of canceled check from DRM. Pretty simple request.
That's what I was told.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay.
Hey, Paul, one question, Paul. How many contracts pertain to DRM that you need? How many vendors? How many contracts?
Listen, let me interrupt you. Would you be kind enough to identify yourself when you speak? Would you be kind enough to identify yourself?
Sure, Alex. It's Mr. Milan. It's Joseph. I just want to know how many vendors or how many road maintenance contracts is in charge of Paul for reviewing.
Okay. There's a contract for the landscape. There's a contract, that's one. There's a contract for the security, that's two. There's a contract for the Perminex, or that's another one, right? There are the insurance contracts, liabilities, workers' compensation. That's another contract. There's there are, from my count off the top of my head, approximately 5 contracts. And of those 5 contracts, to date, I've only had a successful review of 1, and that's the insurance contract. I have not been able to review any other contracts completely. For the landscape contract, I was finally presented with a copy of the reconstructed signed contract from Carl and Luis a few weeks ago when Director Mariano got involved, right?
Well, Paul is at least that whether they agree with you or not, you're speaking to whom you're speaking with and not just beating around the bush, having puzzles for us to figure out. So I'll give you credit for that. Everyone else is just sitting there and talking in tongues, and who can figure that out if you're not saying who you're directly talking about and what you're just directly speaking of, or else it's just a puzzle for us to figure out. So whether you like it or like what Paul is saying or not, at least he's saying it. and he's saying it directly to whom he's addressing it to.
Okay, thank you so much, Mia.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you be kind enough to mute your phones when you are not speaking and when you don't have permission from the chairman? Because what you're doing is creating static, and it's to the detriment of all of us. So please mute your phones when you're not speaking. When you want to speak, ask the chairman for permission. That just out of simple courtesy. I'm sorry to interrupt, Chairman Warren.
Thank you so much, Judge. Thank you, Judge. Thank you so much. So I think, Joseph, did you have a question to add to that? Did I answer your questions? And of course, telecommunication.
So basically, it's 1 out of 5 contracts. For the last 6 months, you've only been able to see 20% of the contracts. And none of the other fellow directors have seen these contracts either?
I can't speak for the other other directors.
Okay.
Paul, were you saying something? Okay. I can't hear. Manuel, go ahead. I'm sorry. Call is on the floor. Please go ahead, Call.
Go ahead, Paul.
Paul?
Or,
Okay, I thought you were going to say something. Okay, please go ahead, Manuel.
just real quickly, who has the fiduciary responsibility in scenario?
Okay, a good question. Now, the part of the reason why, in terms of the fiduciary responsibility, it's not that I'm actually looking for more problems for I already have enough personal problems to deal with on my own. However, in terms of fiduciary responsibility, as a board member, I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm actually checking in with my board I'm checking in with my board and the management office in terms of doing our due diligence, making sure that there are checks and balances, right? That making sure that whatever decision that is taking, it's actually taking for the best benefit of the association, and to make sure that whatever decision is made, it falls within the accounting general standards of having invoices and within the standards of 718. If as a director,
so, and let's see.
Senator, when Joe Biden started his campaign,
yeah. If as a director, if I fail to follow those fiduciary responsibility, right? I can be held responsible financially with liability, right? And not only liability, right? There's also the possibility that it can be subject to the interpretation of my intent for criminal by willfully intent. I know that I have a responsibility. I have a fiduciary responsibility to inspect and to ask. And that's all that I have done. And that's all that I'm asking for.
I'm muted.
Did I answer your question, Manuel?
Yeah. Just really recognize me, so I'm muted.
Remember back to the Obama-Biden.
Okay, so at this point, I think since we have had a discussion in terms of we have agreed that what we will do is we're actually going to we'll table these 2 motions that we had, the motions for the job.
We do.
For some time in the future, because pending myself meeting with President Berkings and the manager figure out an addendum of agreement. I'm sorry, Mr. Berkings.
Carl's trying to speak.
Yes.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
I hear you,
Hello.
Paul.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Regina can hear.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Paul. You for items 2 and 3 on the agenda. Okay. I've talked with staff, and one, Ken, our current manager, has agreed to go ahead and work at DRM, and because he's licensed, instead of receiving the $300 compensation that we were paying the last two managers, what he wanted to do was give that compensation to Vanessa and Alex, who are doing the administrative and the IT for DRM. And therefore, what the board needs to approve is if they accept his recommendation, we will have one staff in the office, and as it's been going on for the last 20 years.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you clearly, then what we need to do at this point, then we'll table these motions back for a later date, but then pending subject to an addendum that we need to have drawn together, and then once we have the addendum draft together in terms of job descriptions and expectation, then we can actually have that for an agenda for a future meeting for approval.
Right.
What's your thoughts there?
Makes sense.
George?
This is Mariano Magro.
Yes,
I would like to make a motion for DRM board meeting to seek an agreement with Towers board to put in writing a contract, a memorandum, or whatever instrument it's more appropriate, stating the responsibilities Tower needs to take for themselves, and stating also the fee that DRM is going to pay Towers, which as we board of the Towers shouldn't be higher than the budget we have for the year.
Okay, what? So we're not going to go in terms of that motion. The motion actually, my suggestion is that the motion, we'll keep the motion basic in terms of having a motion that Towers actually that we meet with Towers actually to come up with an addendum.
Well, yes, a memorandum.
A memorandum and an addendum. Memorandum so that we can actually return to the board with the specifics of what the details are for the board's consideration, instead of us going through with the board meeting here today, because we can actually go through what the expectations are and what would be the compensation are for the two employees and with the property manager.
Yeah, if you make a motion,
somebody
second, then you got to vote on it.
So we'll keep it generic. And then once we have the approval, then once we have the template, then we return to the board for the approval of the
Yeah.
Follow me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to place that motion on the floor. A motion for a memorandum of working agreement to be established or contract with the Towers management staff or the staff, subject to.
Chairman Warren, one quick question. Given Commander Bergen's suggestion, who does that staff ultimately answer to? Who is the ultimate authority that staff answers to?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Answer it.
Good question, Judge, because that's part of the that's part of the problem that we have had before in terms of like the expectation. When you hire someone together, then they have an expectation to know to who they report. But now, so I'll throw that over to Carl and see how we're going to figure that out. Carl, go ahead. You're on, Carl.
No. Hello.
You're on.
Yeah, I'm muted. You got me?
We can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yes.
They would answer to the manager. The manager, and the manager is reports to the board because that's the chain of command. So if there's an issue, it goes to the manager, it goes to Ken. If there's anything that needs to be done, then it goes cross, not up, between the president, DRM, and
Carl, you're breaking up. Like I couldn't hear it clearly. What were you saying? The chain of command was.
Hello, can you hear me?
Barely. You're breaking up, as Paul was saying.
Connection. Okay. I heard you said that the chain
Hello.
of command would be the office staff reports to the property manager, and then where it broke, it disconnected. We can't figure out what you're saying. You said the property manager reports to. It went lost. Go ahead, Carl. We'll try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. The property manager then reports to the president, the tower's president, to any inconsistencies or misunderstandings.
Okay, Carl, I couldn't hear you clearly, but I think what I heard you were saying that the property manager that reports to the tower's board. Before the situation was where the property manager reports to the road maintenance board for the portfolio purview that comes on the road maintenance. But now, if I heard you correctly, you're saying everything goes to towers and to the towers board. So what's the purpose? So my question to you then, if that's your suggestion, what's the purpose of the road maintenance board?
No. That's not what I said. I said, can you hear me?
You're trying, you're breaking up.
No, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm breaking up. That is not what I said. I said he worked with the DRM and the towers to come up with a solution. Not one or the other, both.
Got you. Okay. That's why I wanted to make sure we clarify, because like it was breaking up and breaking up. Okay. So basically the answer, Judge, to answer your question was it would be like it was before, in which like the property manager reports to both boards for the purview for which they cover. If that answers your question.
Well, ultimately, I think to stop the discussion, unless somebody has anything else to add, one of the board, please turn your microphones off. Somebody needs to make a motion. If it's seconded, you need to vote on it. We're going to file a motion of understanding that we're going to have the staff do the day-to-day work, and they will ultimately report and are responsible to the manager on behalf of the Del Vista board and the Del Vista road management. So we don't need to argue about this anymore.
Correct.
I think that's what Commander I believe that's what Commander Bergen suggested. I think that's a good suggestion. There are issues about records in the past. That's a different issue. But right now, to move forward, we need to institutionalize what the chain of command is and what the responsibilities are.
Correct.
With all due respect, one of the board members, please make a motion.
Director Mariano already made the motion, and I think we were at the process of actually getting a second.
Yes, Regina will second that. What Mariano made
some questions. So
yes.
Regina,
and what Carl's proposal, it was all incorporated in there.
Okay, so So we will hiring out what the motion has actually been approved on the floor. So we will have a subsequent board meeting in which we'll go through the clear template of what the expectations are for the working memorandum between the boards. So with that on the agenda, any other questions or comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, may I suggest to the board members that they make that this be done in the next 30 days, so we don't let this linger on.
Good suggestion. Good suggestion. That we had, let's add to this motion that we have a plan of follow-up.
Within 30 days. Very good.
30 days of this motion.
Very good.
Hi, Paul, this is Joanne. I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm curious to know, when the manager was hired, why wasn't any of the, I guess, why wasn't the president of the DRM involved in that process?
Okay, well, thank you for answering that question, but right. So that was so I'm not going to rehash it. Well, we had actually kind of answered that question before that. You're correct. We actually we have done it the opposite way, and we are now turning it around in the process that you've done. So you're correct, and the purpose of this meeting was to address that concern so we can actually have it corrected. So it's a legitimate question, but this is the purpose of this meeting, to address it and to have that corrected.
She didn't ask what she didn't know.
Okay?
Well, my question was why?
Why?
Because they wanted to exclude it.
Because Paul asked for records. That's why. Because Paul asked for records. That's why. That's why.
That's true.
I agree.
I think because
Exactly.
my understanding from Louise that there was a request for records, etc., something of that nature. Okay.
What?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What?
Let's keep focus. We've got to keep focus so we can actually get on with the agenda. So we can actually get on to the ending of the meeting. Now,
Oh, I had nothing to do with it, so I don't appreciate that.
That makes me appreciate. It was a question.
Not to argue.
That's why you want to do these open meetings.
I'm sorry, Director Louis, you wanted to add something more?
So we can't say shit.
What?
No.
I did not. No.
I'm sorry?
This was not, you have to understand, previously unto this time, it's always been the same president from both boards. So when this was put together, it was not mentioned. And Regina and we all worked on it.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. Instead of rehashing history that actually has shown itself to be contrary to what we're actually saying, we will move on to option number 5, which is the lighthouse forecasting. Now, since I haven't received those contracts, and we have actually had a discussion about having a memorandum of understanding with the staff, so I can actually get my hands on those contracts. Once I have those contracts within the next 30 days, then I'll be able to have a forecast of all contracts. So I will
And he's got me fucking muted. Yeah.
Okay. And so with that, I will move to the next item on the agenda, which is good and welfare. Okay. And for the good and welfare, I would like to wish everyone a great evening. And remember that whatever we do here, we are neighbors. We are all neighbors here together, and it's nothing personal. It's all about the welfare of our home. That's all what it is. We may have different thought processes of how we do it, but we need to be able to have the discourse, the discussions on and without actually personal taking it personally or attacking anyone personally. I'm not saying anyone is attacking me personally, but without attacking the person personally, because we will
So,
see
you know
each
what?
other's ground.
I can thank Louise for nominating this motherfucker to be president.
Carl.
I thought I was being nice.
Anyone on the floor? Before I adjourn?
I think Carl is very disrespectful with his vulgar language.
Exactly.
1 second. Joseph, what were you
As
saying?
a president of 400 people, I think that's really absurd the way you're talking to the owners. And if that's going to be your leadership with the vulgarity like that, I think you really should resign immediately.
Agree. He shouldn't be calling people motherfuckers on the line. Who's calling people motherfuckers and wants to be a leader?
That would be Carl Perkins.
He didn't say that. He didn't
Carl
say
did.
that. Let's go back to the replay and audio that's being recorded, Mr. Perkins. That language is intolerable. That's disgusting.
Paul, he did say that. 100% he said that. He doesn't realize he's not muted. This is Nadia, but he 100% said that.
Okay.
Thank you, Nadia.
Okay, my apologies. My apologies to you all. I will actually make this add this to the minutes as a point of order myself.
Paul, hold on 1 second. I see Mr. Perkins just dropped out. Are we going to discuss his vulgarity?
No, he's still on. He got rid of his camera. He didn't realize he wasn't muted. But yeah.
Will he be apologizing?
No.
Mr. President,
No.
will a member of your board be apologizing with his vulgarity?
Director Perkins? Director Perkins? Director Luis, would you like? Okay. Director Mariano? Okay.
Yep,
Director
we're here.
I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
We're all here.
Okay. All right.
Let's move on to number 4.
Joseph? Okay. And to all.
Carl Perkins has now left. That's what I'm reading up in the right-hand corner. Is that how you're going to be holding your meetings now, Mr. Warren, where people will be cursing like that? That's unacceptable. As a member of the president of the towers, is that how we're going to be handling our meetings now?
Answer.
And by the way, Paul, that was directed to you.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Let's give me.
My apologies to the members of the association who are actually will be watching this meeting transcript, and for those who are listening after, my apologies to everyone. And I am opening the floor for any director to propose a motion to adjourn the meeting. Wow.
It's Regina. I make a motion to adjourn.
No, Regina, wait a minute. We haven't dealt with number 4.
Louis was saying something. Louis, what?
Now, Paul, we haven't dealt with
number 4.
Number 4.
Louis,
signers.
Louis, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Shh, everyone. Number 4, the signers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Louis. Thank you.
Everybody's getting.
The
signers on the bank.
What I wanted to say for the signers, based on what we did with the signature cards with Vanessa yesterday, this item on the agenda is actually mute.
Okay.
You follow me?
So it was done. It was done.
It was done. So it
okay.
Was done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mute. But thank you for reminding. It's actually mute for the agenda. Yeah. I'm sorry, Margarita. Before we adjourn, yes.
Well, honestly, I haven't been able to hear much of the conversation because people probably, before we have any meetings, maybe we should establish the norms of engagement. First, people need to be muted. And I don't know if you are the host of the meeting, you can mute everybody and then unmute at your will, at your permission. And I think they don't realize that even after the judge asked people to mute themselves, they continued, and all I was hearing, their dogs barking. Louis, and you are one of them. You never, not for a second, muted yourself. I could hear what you did at your home and everybody else. And another norm of engagement would be to be civil and respectful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margarita. My apologies. In the future, what I will do is I will have to mute everyone in terms of the for the participation. Okay, but point well made. It, and again, my apologies for the language that was used before by our fellow director. I think, were you making a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make
Yes,
a motion
Regina.
to adjourn the meeting.
Return. Okay, I'll second that. It's Regina.
Okay, the motion. Okay, so the motion is carried to adjourn the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your participation.
Hello.
Have a
Oh
great
my
day.
God.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's do it in the morning. No, I made the motion to adjourn. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The whole thing is right. I'm going to I will do the minutes and then I will put my resignation in for tomorrow and they can screw themselves getting a check signed. Yes. Yeah. All right. Oh, and that let me tell you, and that guy Joseph was carrying on and carrying on all through the meeting. He's not a resident. He's not on any. He doesn't own an apartment. He lives with Helene Collini. Good. Okay. Good. I can't. I don't want to be this. Did you? I tried to, and I should have. Yeah. Okay. No. I understand.
Take care.